Hello and welcome to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith, and we are on episode 34, 33,
34, yeah.
34. Okay. So if you haven't seen our previous episodes, the way it works is we have a central topic that Seth and I will discuss. And the way we do that is we have some pre written questions and even some pre written answers so that we are well prepared to talk about said topic. And once we're done going through each question and we each have had our say, we will go into game time, which usually involves some sort of quiz, is usually what we go with, but it doesn't always have to be that way. I usually like to stick to the topic at hand, although it doesn't have to be that way. And then once we go through game time, we have two sections at the very end: news that bites and news that rocks. News that bites is something, whether it be that happened on the news or in our personal lives, that wasn't all too good. And then news that rocks is the opposite, where something in our personal lives or on news that actually was good. And then usually we like to close off the episode. And after we're done, he and I usually pick the topic for the next episode.
So, our big topic of this one is streaming platforms, specifically talking video streaming platforms such as Disney Plus, HBO Max, Hulu, Crackle, a bunch of other ones, and arguably they are pretty much taking over the media world by this point. It seems to be far from a secret that they are here and they are a driving force.
Yeah, a lot of companies, they would just put a plus after their company's name and make it a streaming service. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't. Some of them don't even have a plus in their name, like Netflix. Uh, but I feel like, especially when the pandemic first got started and a lot of people were forced to stay home, different media companies wanted to take advantage of that fact and make a lot of things available online so people can watch from home. And because of how popular some of them get, it's safe to say they're here to stay for a while.
Yeah. What would a lot of people have done during the lockdown without that?
I mean, there's plenty of things they could have done, but it was definitely a popular choice.
Yeah. 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 So I did write up a few questions, and this is something probably a lot of you have thought about. The question of, is streaming about to completely take over live TV?
Now, my thoughts on that was that I don't think it'll take over entirely. Maybe a good chunk of what live TV had, but I don't know if it'll take it over completely. Some people still really like watching from week to week, like myself, building the suspense between each episode as to what will happen next. With live events, some will look at recaps afterwards so they don't have to watch the whole thing. For some, however, there will be nothing better than watching the episodes or events unfold as it happens. And now that a lot of movies are back in theaters, uh, instead of just showing up one day on a streaming service, more and more people are enticed to go out and see it with people again, as opposed to just waiting for it to appear at home, sometimes even behind a paywall if they wanted to see it right away.
For a while, I think what a lot of companies were doing was they were just releasing movies directly to streaming probably just because places were pretty much locked down for that time. But
Right.
now, things like here in New York State, things are pretty much opened up. Things are more or less normal now, and my I think my first time since the pandemic going to a movie, though I don't really, though even before that I wasn't really regularly doing this, I did go out and see Spider-Man No Way Home in the theater.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and I believe you did too.
I did. I don't know if it was the first movie I'd seen back in the theaters, but I definitely did go see it.
And yeah, I did while I was preparing for this, I found an article from a website called theskylineview.com, and I'll put a link to it in the episode description, but I'll kind of try and sort of sum up what the writer talked about in it.
Okay.
So basically, it's a sort of discussion of the prevalence of these streaming platforms, and how they do stuff like add multiple episodes at once, and how social media, for one thing, because of what people can put on there makes live TV in a way kind of make less sense to consume. And I guess you could say the big idea is, because streaming is so prevalent, because it's so easy to access and it's so convenient, it makes live TV pretty much not as easy to consider, or not as popular.
I can definitely see that side of it. And then the other big piece of convenience is that people have many options right at their fingertips. And in most cases, or at least in some, when watching, say, a film, there won't often be ads in the middle. Whereas if the movie were to be shown on television, they usually throw in commercials every, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, depending on the film, or when a big scene ends.
Yeah.
So right now, that's a big convenience. Although apparently, Netflix was talking about throwing ads into a lot of their stuff, which people are not receiving very well.
Like in the middle?
I believe so. I believe it was Netflix that said they were going to consider putting ads in more of their content.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, they've been doing some things recently that people don't like. Like they've been raising their prices yet again. They've talked about throwing ads in. They're they've lost a lot of subscribers very recently, like a mass amount.
Well, that might not make me completely abandon Netflix, but it will probably at least frustrate me.
Well, I would imagine, and by no means am I trying to convince anyone to stop using Netflix.
Oh
It's
no, me
more
neither.
just like, hey, here's a heads up as to what might happen, so don't be surprised if it does.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, I did put down for another question some stuff on specifically Netflix that I've liked. So
Mhm.
um yeah, you know what? We pretty much covered the first question, so we'll just go on to that, I guess.
Sounds good.
The second question, I said, what are some contents exclusive to the platforms, like we've talked about, like HBO Max, Hulu, whatever, content exclusive to them, stuff that originated with them, probably a better way to say it, that you have enjoyed, and why?
All right, do you want me to start?
Yeah.
All right, so there's a couple. I realized after writing down all my answers that every single one can be found on Disney Plus. That wasn't originally intended. Uh, and out of the four that I have here, only two of them originated on Disney Plus. The other two originated elsewhere. But the first one I wrote down was the Marvel Cinematic Universe's WandaVision. And this was one of the few shows that I've watched so far. I got to catch up on a few. But it kind of started off acting kind of self-aware that it acted in the form of a TV show, kind of making fun of past sitcoms in previous decades, like the 70s, 80s, 90s. And around episode 4 is when bigger twist took place that honestly kept me invested. A lot of people, when they first saw WandaVision, they they were kind of saying the first few episodes felt kind of slow, and they weren't sure if they wanted to keep watching. But many people who watched all the way through were saying, get to about the fourth episode, it's going to get really good.
Yeah, I did also watch a little bit of that. Can't say I was as into it as you were, but it was not bad though.
All right.
Yeah.
Then the second one was the one that they did afterwards, which was Falcon and Winter Soldier. For me, it was a good, solid way to explore the connection these two characters have, as well as covering some issues that they have faced in previous MCU films. Because we've seen, for example, in Captain America Civil War, these two work off each other in some way, and a lot of people wanted that further explored. And sure enough, this show delivers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, do you want to do yours before I do my other ones?
You want to go ahead and do your other two?
Sure. The third one, and these are the two, remember, that did not originate on Disney Plus, but can be found there. The first one being Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I think it had a theatrical film first that was acted kind of like a pilot to the rest of the series. But while I haven't watched it all the way through yet, from what I've seen so far, I think I'm about halfway through. It's an interesting and fun take on the events that would have taken place between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, which were episodes 2 and 3 in the franchise, as well as having some interesting twists that connected to previous films. And it showed what it would look like if Anakin was a master, because in this show, he has a Padawan of his own.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that would make sense from a continuity perspective, because I think as far as I know, what little I know about episode 3, Anakin didn't really have his own apprentice, as far as I know.
Well, there is a spoiler that I will say here that kind of answers that question. So anyone who is watching or listening right now, I'd say probably skip 30, maybe 60 seconds ahead if you don't want to hear this. But I think by season 5, like the end of season 5, his Padawan leaves the Jedi Order and goes about her own path, which would then explain why you don't see her in the films. Although I think she made a return in the animated series Star Wars Rebels, which took place after Anakin became full-on Darth Vader with the costume and everything. And I think she made an appearance in The Mandalorian, which took place after at least episode 6. I'm not sure about the other films that followed, but I know she appeared there as well.
Oh, all right. What was the other one?
The other one, I don't know how many people would remember this show because it debuted at least a couple decades ago now. I forget exactly when it premiered, but it's an old Disney cartoon called Darkwing Duck.
I have vaguely heard about it, but never really watched it, even as a kid.
Well, in terms of style, it's kind of similar to Batman, whereas he usually goes out at night to fight crime, although he's a little bit more egotistical about it. Like he often does it for fame and fortune, although he still has a decent character. Like he cares about other people. He wants to make sure they are safe. He wants to do the right thing. But every once in a while, he does it for self-centered reasons. But for me, it was a highly nostalgic cartoon show with a lot of humor and adventure. And they kind of, in a sense, brought him back when they did a DuckTales reboot in 2017, because the character was featured along with some other characters that were in the original franchise. And there are reports that he's getting a new series in the future, although I don't know exactly when.
Yeah, guess we'll see.
Yeah, and if anybody chooses to watch this on Disney Plus, the show, one thing I will say is I think they listed a lot of the episodes way out of order. Like the premiere episodes are listed somewhere in the middle for some reason. So I would recommend looking up a website that lists all the episodes in chronological order. So a few more things will make sense.
Yeah, I feel like there's a kind of similar situation with Lizzie McGuire on Disney Plus. I don't know if it was how like the episode chronology always was, even before the platform came out, but like somewhere like something like 5 episodes into the list, they've got like the pilot that I think they made before the official show.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't really harm anything. But yeah, it is kind of odd if you think about it.
Well, there was a Lizzie McGuire movie, I think, that also acted as the finale of the series.
I think it was like released between episodes late in the series.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I put down a couple things that exclusive to platforms that intrigued me, and the first one is one that technically originated as a YouTube Red series, but then its platform was shifted to Netflix, and the whole series is there now. And it's called Cobra Kai.
Okay, I definitely heard of that one. I haven't seen it, and I know what it's based on, but I have not actually watched it.
Yeah, yeah. So Cobra Kai is pretty much an extension of the Karate Kid franchise, and it follows Ralph Macchio's rival Johnny Lawrence. Decades after the events of the first movie, he you know, well, builds his own sort of revival, Cobra Kai Dojo, after losing his handyman job, and eventually Ralph Macchio's character, Daniel LaRusso, starts his own sort of Miyagi-style dojo, and I think tensions slowly flare in the valley, and all these kids getting into karate and getting into kind of trouble with the law and stuff. It's It's dramatic and thrilling, and got some good multiple dimension character writing.
All right, so I may have to check it out at some point then.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then there was one other Netflix series called Hyperdrive. It was a sort of motorsports competition show, where professional drivers from around the world competed against each other in a sort of precision obstacle course competition. And it was actually, yeah,
I was just about to ask, is this a reality show?
yeah, sort of reality competition show.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this show actually was filmed at the Kodak Park here in Rochester, New York, where we are.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Pretty fun, exciting obstacle challenge show if you're into motorsports or some suspenseful sporting or competition TV, you might like this.
All right, and I actually do find it pretty cool that at least some of it was right here in Rochester, New York. I think the only other big piece of media uh, where something similar happened in our location was when they filmed part of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 in Rochester.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in our first episode.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's just one last question I put down. What are some new shows or films you'd like to see be made for these platforms?
Well, I wrote down, let's see, how many did I write down? I wrote 4 different ideas. And the first one was I'd like to see episodes of a show that kind of show the behind the scenes work of big films or shows, like what it looks like making the set pieces or doing some of the editing process. If it's an animated film, maybe show them animating the characters or drawing them, as the case may be.
Yeah, I think in recent years there have been some movies of that type, like Mank, and there's a new one that I've been seeing talk about the making of The Godfather.
Okay, yeah, because I
Yeah,
think it just hit a big anniversary recently.
yeah. Yeah, so I think that's just been produced, and maybe they just released it or are getting ready to. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, and we've kind of gotten to some degree stuff like that with past DVD extra features, but it'd be nice to see maybe a step up from that, like a full maybe a full blown movie focused on the making of one feature.
Yeah, like a documentary or something.
Yeah.
And then I wrote this Pixar or Disney in general making entire segments for bloopers for their films. Because for those who may not be aware, some of Pixar's earlier films had bloopers that showed the animated characters as if they were real actors. And honestly, it was some of the funniest content I'd ever seen. But for whatever reason, they just stopped doing it after a while. And I'm thinking maybe even if it's its own little side project, I'd love to see them bring that back.
Yeah, maybe like a Disney Plus exclusive, like short series of those.
Yeah, maybe something similar length to Olaf recapping previous Disney films, but instead it's bloopers for previously existing animated films.
It's pretty interesting. I think one thing that kind of thing does is when you watch that is it can make you forget that these characters are made up, that they're not real, and well, well, even the films themselves, in a way, they can do that. Now because they're so strongly written, they've got so much depth to these characters, but this those blooper reels in a way kind of helped the illusion in a way.
In a way, yeah, because it made them feel that much more real.
Yeah, yeah.
Then the third of the four that I wrote, it's like I'd like to see some sort of short series, maybe where it has a side by side showing, because they kind of do this in behind the scenes stuff in DVDs and such. But I'd love to see whole segments with a side by side showing of a voice actor recording the lines for the character in the booth with another video right next to that showing what the final version of the movie looked like.
So, like a shot of the finished film positioned right next to a shot of them in the booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I've heard actors talk about when they're interviewed about their work, their voiceover work on an animated film. One thing apparently they do during the recording sessions is they actually often have a video camera running on them, um, and what they do with that footage, they use that to study their mannerisms mm, when they're acting the role, and that pretty much influences how they animate the character.
Yeah, a lot of directors have said they often base how their character is or how their character moves based on what the voice actor is doing in the booth. So if a voice actor is in front of the mic and when they're talking really excitedly and they're moving their arms like this, they'll often have the character do the same thing. So I figured it was a really nice touch that they take inspiration from what the actor is actually doing, because then it makes it seem more legitimate. Uh, and then the last one I wrote is if there's an entire movie, or at least a good chunk of it, that has a lot of CGI, I'd like to see another version of the same movie and what it looks like without the CGI, just to see how different or ridiculous it may look. And part of my idea for writing this was when they did the live action Beauty and the Beast, I think in 2017. Uh, there were screenshots or clips shown of the famous ballroom dance scene and what the Beast looked like without all the CGI. And it was, not to sound like I'm making fun of the actor, because I'm not, but all the stuff he had to wear just made it seem more comedic than anything else.
Oh, yeah, what was he? Was he wearing a costume like you would see in the movie, or just like just some sort of like bodysuit or something?
It was a big, puffy, I think, a big, puffy, gray bodysuit of some kind that had a lot of those little orbs around the costume to help with motion tracking.
Yeah, I had a couple ideas of my own, and yeah, Disney has sort of done something like this first one I'm going to talk about, but I think maybe they could up at another level. I said a show looking at how Disney park rides were built and how they work. Like maybe show like somebody like behind the scenes operating it as it's going, or like, and maybe a look at the construction process. Maybe see some of the materials that were used and how they were put together. So something like that, maybe like in the style of a show that they have on Disney Plus called Prop Culture, where there's a host talking with some people responsible for this stuff, and that I might like.
I was about to say, Prop Culture did something at least relatively similar, but I would definitely like to see a kind of show like what you were just talking about.
And then I said a show with episodes digging deeply into one topic, like the Pledge of Allegiance, or one particular song, maybe, or which would probably, from one angle, sound like a Wikipedia article in screen form, but maybe doing something, like in Prop Culture, where traveling to significant places in the subject story, or maybe talking with some of the people involved in the event or the project being discussed. So maybe that.
All right, so maybe another documentary style show, but
Yeah.
covering. Okay, I could
Yeah.
definitely see something like that. Maybe. I mean, the first thing I thought of was, like you were saying, they go to different locations and then they could say something like, and right here in this very spot, this big event took place this many years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, cool.
Yeah. All right. So well, that's it for me there. Why don't we go now into our game time? I have a few questions. I don't know if Jordan has anything.
I do.
All right. All right, then we'll start with you.
Like, you want me asking you?
Yeah.
Okay. I have 5 questions here. First one is, which streaming service currently hosts The Simpsons?
Disney Plus.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, the reason for that, you wouldn't think that originally, because Disney usually didn't make content like The Simpsons, but Simpsons was part of 20th Century Fox, which Disney bought the rights to.
Yeah. Yeah. And Disney, The Simpsons is a show that runs on Fox. Now Disney owns the Fox company, and so there you go.
Exactly. All right, and then question number 2. This insane Korean show debuted its first season on Netflix. and it took the world by storm at the time of its release. They have confirmed a season 2, but not much else is known yet.
Squid Game?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did mention, I think last time, the video related to that Mr. Beast put on YouTube, and I recommended that.
Yeah, I meant to actually watch it before our next episode, but I haven't gotten around to it. I'll have to do that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Number 3. Which streaming service is the upcoming show Sonic Prime going to be on?
Sonic Prime. All right.
It is a new animated Sonic show.
Man. Yeah, I think I would probably have an idea if I knew, like, who put out the recent Sonic movies. Maybe that would help, but...
Well, I can tell you that it was originally going to be Sony who helped with the Sonic movies, but the job got shifted over to Paramount. But it was
Paramount
not
Plus?
It was not Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay.
Paramount is only responsible for the movies.
Okay. HBO Max?
No?
Yeah. Prime?
It was not Prime either.
No. Hulu?
Keep going.
Crackle? No. Netflix?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Then question 4. This popular streaming service, with some declining popularity, actually started out by mailing DVDs to those who could order them and then return them when done.
Netflix.
Yeah. I realized after the answer to the previous question was Netflix, it might make that one a little bit easier, but hey. Then the last one, which you might know the answer to, and this is more directed towards the audience, but if people are paying attention to our discussion up to this point, they might know the answer to this. But this popular TV show on Disney Plus covers many stories surrounding Donald Duck's uncle and nephews, which got a surprisingly well-received reboot in 2017, which also saw the return of Darkwing Duck and some characters connected to him.
DuckTales.
Exactly.
Yes. All right. So I got 5 questions for you. I pretty much more or less, thought of like your taste, comics, that sort of thing, and
All right.
some little connections to that. I got 5 questions here.
Cool.
And first one, in what comic book movie does Jim Carrey wear a green mask?
Does Jim Carrey wear a green mask? I would probably have to guess Batman Forever when he was the Riddler. But then I don't remember the mask being green.
No,
But then
no, not that.
If it's not that one, then probably the movie conveniently called The Mask.
That's it. Yes, The Mask.
Okay.
Yes.
See, I didn't think of that until after I said the Batman one. It's like, I don't think his mask was green in that film. But then it's like, oh, wait, there was The Mask where his head turned green. So probably The Mask.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Keke Palmer co-starred in the film Joyful Noise with what new Rock and Roll Hall of Famer?
New Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. When did this come out?
This was like, I think maybe like an early 2010s movie.
Okay. And they're a new Rock and Roll Hall of Famer as of recent or as of when that movie came
Yeah.
out? Okay.
As of recently.
Okay. This one might be a little bit trickier. My first guess for some reason was Dolly Parton, but that doesn't sound right.
Yep.
Oh, it is Dolly
Yep.
Parton?
It. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What do you
It's
know?
the one movie I've seen her in. I haven't seen her act much except like that clip promoting Hannah Montana and her little Heartstrings miniseries. That's about it.
Is Heartstrings where they showed her as a kid growing up as well, or is that something else?
That's the Christmas of Many Colors, which I did not
Okay.
see.
Because I know I'd seen one show or series, short film, whatever it was, that did something like that, but I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah, Heartstrings is more like a sort of anthology series, like based on stories behind popular songs of hers.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Next one is before the MCU. What actor voiced Frozone in The Incredibles?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Right on. Yes.
I loved his depiction of Frozone. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you did good. All right. Next one. What music icon did Jamie Foxx famously portray in a 2004 biopic?
Jamie Foxx portraying what?
What music icon did he play?
Okay. Jamie Foxx biopic. This one I might struggle having an answer for. What music
Yeah.
artist would he portray?
Yeah, and I picked the Jamie Foxx question because he played Electro. So
Right. It's like I definitely know who he is. Trying to think. I'm not sure actually.
um, like famous for pioneering R&B. Had a song called "Georgia on My Mind," "Hit the Road Jack."
Not ringing any bells.
Ray Charles.
Okay, I have heard that musician's name. I don't know if I've
Yeah,
listened to their music
yeah,
though.
yeah, yeah. All right, I got just one left.
Mhm.
What legend of silent film did Robert Downey Jr. play in a 1992 biopic?
Oh, you know what? I saw footage of this recently too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like part of the film?
Yeah, like brief segments from the film, I believe I've seen before. I just don't remember the name.
Charlie Chaplin.
Right, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, got most of them, right?
Yeah, I think I got the first three okay.
Yeah. All right. All right. So now all that's left is news that bites and rocks, and I'll let you go ahead and do your thing that bites first.
All right. I wasn't sure for a little while as to which story I would go with, but this is one that happened very recently. For my news at Bites, I wrote down the tragic shooting that recently took place in, or at least nearby, or in a Tops in Buffalo.
I yeah have heard about that. Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest hitting news stories around us currently, and yeah,
Yep.
it's a biting thing. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, from what I understand, 13 people were shot, 10 of them died. I don't know too much else other than there was the very distinct possibility based on what this guy was posting beforehand that it was racially motivated. Uh, and I think they're investigating other social media platforms right now to see if he had any other targets because it sounded like he would be going after Rochester next. And then I guess in his senior year, when he was answering some questions like what he'd like to do after graduation or whatever, and I think they said he wrote murder suicide. So this has been thought about, or at least on his mind, for a good while. And the other thing I know for sure is that there was a father in the store at the time when the shooting happened with his young daughter, and he, I believe, was hiding in maybe the frozen department or something, but he was hiding somewhere in the store with his daughter, recollecting to some probably news anchor talking about how that whole scenario felt from their perspective.
That can probably compel you to think, what you do to someone is likely not just going to affect them, it's going to affect the other people in their lives.
And unfortunately, oftentimes when they go and do something like this, they're not thinking straight, if much at all. And then some of them might regret it afterwards once they realize what they actually did and the whole scale of it all. But by then, the damage is already done.
I myself have some family in Buffalo. As far as I know, they weren't affected, but yeah,
Okay.
though they might have not gotten the worst of it, yeah, it's still a hurtful thing if it happens to anybody.
Oh, absolutely. Regardless of who did it, regardless of who it happens to, it's never a pleasant story.
I put down for my thing that bites something further away from home and probably not that interesting, but probably worth bringing up anyway. This
Sure.
happened in Oklahoma. Apparently, some woman down there went to Little Caesars. They were out of Crazy Bread, and she slapped an employee and called them the N-word.
Jeez. I never fully understood why people do this. Because if you go on YouTube or any website that does videos, you could probably just look up entire compilations of people harassing employees, especially at fast food joints like McDonald's or Wendy's or Arby's or something. I mean, heck, when I was working at Arby's, I've had that happen where people would verbally harass me or something, even though I had nothing to do with what they were complaining about. But yeah, for whatever reason, it happens a lot, like frighteningly a lot. And I don't understand why some people feel so entitled that they think they're supposed to be doing something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard recordings on YouTube of 911 calls being made by some customers uh, over wrong orders or some dissatisfaction like that. It's intriguing. I probably more than it should be to me. Either way, it's crazy.
Well, in a way, it's an intriguing thing because in our everyday lives, we usually don't see something like that.
I know I haven't.
When we see compilations or even one or two clips of it happening, it's a moment of reality that's like, wow, this actually does happen. Like there are actually people who are stupid enough to do something like this. I'll never understand it, but I know I don't like it.
Yeah, and it's something you want to avoid doing because if you keep doing that, you can go to prison for at least a night. It
at
happened
the
to at
very
least
least.
one of them. It happened to at least one of them.
Yep.
Mm.
And if there's property damage in the process, because I know there was one clip that was infamous a while back of a woman who was in a McDonald's drive-through. She was absolutely just aggravated. And I think it was mostly because she wasn't getting her chicken nuggets or she didn't like something about them or whatever. And she started screaming. She started throwing her fists. I think eventually she tried to break through the drive-through window just to get to the employees, even saying ridiculous things like, I would go Super Saiyan on you. And eventually she drove away, but God knows there was camera footage, so people know what she looks like. I don't know if she ever got tracked down and or arrested, which she probably did, but some people are that crazy.
Yeah, okay, well, enough of that. What about something that rocks for you?
For my news that rocks, I am excited to say that my mom just recently celebrated her birthday.
All right, and which one?
Like,
Like,
which?
what year?
Oh,
What age?
she is the prime young age of 58.
Yeah. Yeah. So somewhere in like my parents' range.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how old your parents are, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But yeah, in with all of the things going on in my mom and I's personal lives, this was a nice little glimmer of sunshine to be able to celebrate that day with her.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. Not as maybe not as dramatic, but it's been kind of crazy here for me. You know, with my job and other stuff, I guess. But my birthday is coming up on Sunday, and I'm going to be taking a few days trip in a couple days.
Oh, where are you going?
Yeah, to Lancaster or the Amish country for the Sight and Sound Theater show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever been in Amish country before. Maybe I have and I just didn't realize it, but I remember there was a day where I was looking through or visiting a college rather when I was still looking to decide which one I would attend. And one in particular, I want to say it was in Pennsylvania when I was getting close to the building. There was a clearly Amish family going the opposite direction in a horse carriage of some variety, like a chariot type thing. But it was cool to see because I don't think up to that point I'd ever seen Amish people face to face before.
Yeah, but you probably saw them in like in television stuff and maybe like that Weird Al video. Well,
Oh
I
yeah,
guess it's debatable how accurate that is, but
and there was the animated show Arthur. I remember they
right.
had an episode where they visited an Amish house.
Yeah,
Uh,
for a field trip. Yeah.
yep. But yeah, up to that point, I'd only ever seen Amish depicted in the media. Although now that I think about it, I think there was also a show that I watched a little bit of, not a lot, but a little bit that covered some people that were in an Amish family but chose to leave the Amish life. And
Hmm.
then it showed what they did afterwards, like going into cities and doing things that Amish people wouldn't ever do.
Well, I can't say how extremely Amish our surroundings are going to be, but I do think we've got some fun times ahead.
Oh, I bet you do.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my thing that rocks today is something I simply thought was interesting. I came across an article on Google about Danica McKellar, the child star of the show The Wonder Years, and how she found a personal faith in Christ for the first time, apparently, after being invited by her friend Candace Cameron Bure of Full House fame to attend church, and she's talked about this openly recently, like on video or something, about she feels happier now, and she's learning and growing. It's interesting, something I didn't expect. I've liked her before, but this is a nice surprise.
Well, absolutely. It's always wonderful, at least from our perspective, to see people turning to Christ. It's a big deal. It's a big choice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and my best wishes to you, Danica, and welcome to the family. And surround yourself with good, like-minded people, and enjoy the journey. And when things get down, don't get discouraged. And yeah, so that's it for me. That's all we've got, and we're gonna sign off now in a bit. And thanks for streaming this episode of More Layers, and you can catch all of our episodes released on YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and Spotify. And keep your questions, comments, whatever coming, and enjoy.
Yeah, and if you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you have a specific topic that you would like discussed, or if you feel compelled to speak on it yourself, let us know. And even if we can't find a way to have a third person in the conversation, what we can do is, if you have a topic that you want discussed and you have personal thoughts on it, leave those comments with us, and then we will quote you if you like, and you will be featured in an episode.
All right, yes, please. Yeah, and until next time, we'll see you. I won't be here on Sunday. It's my birthday, and I'll be traveling on the road. So
and I'll be working my job, so
maybe the week after. We don't know. We'll see.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we will. All right. Until next time, and take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.